Alright, hi guys, here is this little brief animation setup tutorial. I'm just going to very briefly go over what Krita has to offer as far as various tools, as well as just how to basically set up what we talked about today in Clip Studio, and how to do that in Krita. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to just start out with by clicking a new file. You might be tempted to use these animation templates. You are more than welcome to. They're a little bit more complicated than what we're going to do here. So I might recommend following along with this. And then instead, afterwards, maybe messing around once you understand some of the more basic tools available in Krita's animation capabilities. So what we're going to do is just hover over Custom Document, create that. Make sure you have something like 1920 by 1080. You can also do 1080 by 720. Then click Create. Once you have this, then what you'll want to do is you will want to go over here. There's a couple ways to start pulling out stuff, right? You can click up here, and you can click Workspace. What's nice is once you click Animation, this is a much simpler version of the basics of what you need for your animation. What you can see here is you have your toolbar on the left. You've basically got all your brushes, your eraser, everything you need to draw. And then we have our layers, which we've got a background layer and a paint layer right over here. Then we also have our animation right down here. And this is really where we get into the animation stuff. So just briefly, over here is what frame you're on. You can see how this changes as you click through the timeline down here. And then right here is your start frame and your end frame. So if you change this end, that's where your animation will end. If you change that to frame 39, that's where it's going to end. This is your play bar. So basically, if you wanted to play the animation, clicking this would play it out. And you can go either through next frame, next keyframe, or the last frame, and vice versa over on the left side. Down here we have a couple other buttons. So basically in order, we've got our create a new frame. It just says add blank frame. We also have add duplicate frame, remove keyframes, onion skin. So if you click onion skin, it might pop out elsewhere, so make sure to hunt around for it. It might not pop on directly onto your screen. There it is. So basically onion skins, we briefly covered this in Clip Studio, but this is Krita's onion skinning, and all this is saying is how many frames before and after you are seeing your current timeline. And you can only see up to 10 frames before and 10 frames after. And what this bar is essentially how visible or how transparent the frame is in comparison to others. So as the frame goes further and further away from your current frame, it gets less and less visible or more and more transparent. And you can also change the color of your frames. So your previous frames here are default red and default green for next frames, but you can change all of that, as well as the aggressiveness of the tint. So if you want a pure green or more like a soft green, it's kind of what that toggles. Generally, I keep this on default, but it's nice to know that you have this sort of control in case you need it. Okay, and then you can toggle onion skinning on and off by just clicking the same thing. At the very least, visibility of the window. This doesn't toggle it on for your animation. Okay. Then, just kind of another thing to note, so this is auto frame, essentially like when you draw, it creates a frame, is sort of the idea, or at the very least, when you create a blank frame, and then you go to the next one, it's going to start creating frames instead of just drawing on the same frames. So I usually keep auto frame mode on when I'm in Krita. All right. And you'll notice too that as I'm animating, it's kind of adding to existing frames as well with auto frame mode on. So if you wanted to create a new blank frame, you can either toggle this off or just click new blank frame. Okay, I'll keep this on. And then this is just drop frame, so this is regarding playback. when you're playing it through, sometimes for quickness to maintain the timing, it'll drop frames in order to kind of maintain that timing. This is a little bit more technical. I would just keep it on, I guess, but it's up to you, especially as you play through with your animation. If you find that it's dropping too many drawings, you're more than welcome to keep it off. And then finally, play speed. So this is just how fast it's playing. If you wanted to play it through slower, you're welcome to toggle this. And then frame rate. This is the magic number right here. You want to keep it at 24. More is generally more work, and it's going to be a bit just more intense in general, more frames to cover. Less is not necessarily less work, it's just going to go by a little bit faster. Alright, so there is frame rate. 24 is generally the solid way to go. And then down here is going to be our timeline, which is going to be your best friend, right? Let's just delete these. Okay. So this is your timeline. How Krita works is it's slightly different than Clip Studio in that Clip Studio creates a new layer for every single frame. Krita does not do that. It's a little bit more like kind of something like animate, where it really is just using frames and all the frames are on one layer. So if I were to create a new layer, essentially each animation would be almost like on a different layer. So if I wanted to animate, for example, some sort of cat. There he is. Oh, we would need to... Oh, this is a great example of what not to do. So make sure when you first start animating to always create a blank frame first. Because that way it knows that you want to start animating. If you don't, it's going to just delete your drawing. So my cat just died, unfortunately. So let's try that again. Okay. So essentially, on this layer, we have our cat again. He's returned back to the life. And then maybe back here, and make sure you select the layer 1, we have like the grass, whatnot. So this is going to be animated on a different layer, essentially, right? And this, erasing this, will not affect your cat. So it's kind of nice if you have multiple things that you want to animate, which a lot of us do. You'll want to make sure that you have 2 different layers going on, or however many you need for each thing that's going on. And of course you can create as many layers as you'd like. Now, if we want to, for example, start in-betweening, or at the very least we want to start animating, and it's like, wait, I would like to see my little guy so I can know what happens next, especially if I'm just going to animate straight ahead from here. So to enable our onion skin, I have it visible over here, but to actually enable it on the animation canvas, you want to go over here to where you see your layers visible in the timeline, and you want to click the little light bulb, and there he is, ready to go. And that way I can very clearly see where I can draw next. And in Krita, arrow keys are the ways to toggle back and forth. So I'm using my arrow keys. Okay. And then over here, basically, it's just kind of ways to lock or to preserve transparency, to lock transparency, that sort of thing, all across the board. And then this is the visibility of it. So that's what the rest of those do. Okay, so that is the essentials to animating in Krita. As far as shift and trace goes, again, I mentioned that in our Clip Studio demo today. Again, just as a review, shift and trace, this is back in Clip Studio Paint, was essentially the idea of taking previous frames and being able to manipulate them in order to see them in different angles and to help with consistency. And we did that a little bit today. There's not really a way to do that organically in Krita. However, we can do a little bit like what we did in the beginning of class, where if I create a special layer, so say I would like to create this little kitty here, and I want him to kind of stay the same size. Like I'm imagining maybe cat is going to go over here, but I don't really necessarily want to just redraw him because I feel like he'll be a bit too big or a bit too small. So one thing you can do is you can totally duplicate the layer. And then what I did is I did Control-T, or over here, it's transform a layer. And you can kind of move it over here or wherever you want it. I'm going to drag it below everything else. And then you edit the opacity, essentially, of the layer. And so that's the same idea behind shift and trace. So if this was like a very long animation, all I would have to do is just find the specific frame that I wanted, copy, paste it, and then shift and trace. So now what I'll do is we'll go here. And this acts as a form of just onion skinning, just a slightly more advanced onion skinning is kind of how I think of it. So now we get to trace our previous cat and keep him the same size all across the board. Okay. So again, those are the basics of animating in Krita. Now, the last thing to talk about is exporting a video. So this is a bit of a complicated process, so I'm going to do my best to just kind of walk you through it. And again, feel free to let me know if you do have any questions. So let's do this export. So what you'll want to do is, it's tempting to click export. That's not the right way. So instead you can click render animation. Render. And you can do an image sequence just fine without downloading anything extra. But for video, if you want it to recognize your video, there's a little bit of a hoop you have to jump through at first. So first what you want to do is just make sure that everything looks good at the top here, that the width is fine, the FPS is fine, the first frame and the last frame are fine. I might change this to like frame 15 so it doesn't take forever. Or maybe 10, 12. And so you'll notice here, FFmpeg is something that you may not have filled out. I've already pre-downloaded the thing. So this is kind of the issue. If you end up trying to export this without this plugin, it's going to yell at you and say you need a special plugin. So it's totally fine. It's totally free. However, it's just kind of annoying to get into. So I'm going to kind of try to walk you guys through that real quick here. Okay, so what to do when this pop-up will happen. So I can't simulate the pop-up, but essentially it will lead you, it'll say you need to download this website or this thing from this website. So you'll click on it. It's fine. It's totally good. And then what you'll do is you'll be brought to this website. So what you want to do then is click download. It's going to lead you to a lot of stuff. Now, if you're on a Mac, you'll want to click this. I'm on a Windows, so I can speak to that. And then I believe it is this one. Yeah, so it's this one you'll want to download. So right here, again, hover over. So they kind of change as you hover over them. So hover over this one right here, the Windows, if you're Windows. And then you'll want to click on the Gyandev. Down here, there's a lot of stuff, so it can be a bit like, wow. All you need is to download the essentials right here. So you can see this one right here. Honestly, I think either will work fine. I've used this one for a bit, so just the 22 megabyte essentials, the second one, all these links. And what you'll want to do is you click it, there's a link, and it's going to download it, right? Now, it's kind of a multi-step process, so bear with me here. But once you download it, you want to show it in your folder. There's a lot of stuff here. I want you guys just to focus on this right here. So you'll want to right click and open it, so extract it. Now, if you don't have an extraction tool software, I'm going to send a link to 7-Zip, which is a pretty easy download as well. And it's free, which is nice. But basically, assuming you have a way to extract this, what you're going to want to do is extract the files. And all that means is it's just taking it out of the zip file, the zip folder. And then what I like to do is just put it in my documents. So wherever it's easy for you to go and find, because you'll need to go find it after this. So you click OK, and then you click OK, and it was going to start extracting it. Yes. So it's extracted. So now I'm going to have 2. So I'm going to go back to my documents because that's where I put it. Here's all my stuff. And then my extra one is right here. So you're going to click on FFmpeg, basically, right? And then it's all in here. The weird thing is, so what you're going to need to do next is a bit funky. Okay, so the process is going to be essentially from here on out, just a bunch of kind of follow along with me's, right? So just kind of look at it and see what I'm doing. So what we want to do is we're going to right click and copy, or control copy, or control C is really what it is. And then you want to just make sure you're copying the bin location, the bin, because this is where all the fancy stuff is that it'll read. Then you're going to go over to this PC. So if you see this PC, you're going to right click, and then you're going to go to properties down here. Okay. Once you're in properties, you're going to see a lot of stuff, a lot of crazy stuff going on here. All you need to focus on is advanced system settings. So that's going to pop up a bubble that says this stuff. Now, by the way, if you're logged on to some sort of school computer, there could be some issues with admin access. So make sure if you are having issues, you can always have a parent help you watch this and figure things out. Okay, with that aside, you're going to then want to click environment variables. I know, it's kind of crazy. Then, all right, we're almost there. You want to click down here on the bottom window, path, and that's where the system variables are. And then you're going to click edit. So again, you're going to click path on the bottom window and then edit. And you can already see down here, I've now created another environment variable for this FFmpeg. So all you want to do is do that exact thing. Click new, copy paste, or I guess right click and then paste, or control V. And that's going to make another basic path. Then you're going to want to click OK, OK, OK. Everything is saved now. That should be it. That should be all you need to do in order to get this. The last possible thing to do is then going to be, I'm going to toggle back to Krita. Clicking right on here in the FFmpeg, which will still be empty at this point. You actually don't even have to restart your Krita. So you'll just click this, and then let's say, for example, I were to switch to the other newer copy. You're going to then go to Documents. There it is. There it is. Click Open, and you should be good to go. Okay, so that was a lot. Let's make sure that it uploaded. I had it set to going into an animations folder in my thing here. So let me just go find it. Animations. Hopefully, again, this was a helpful tutorial and wasn't too aggressively difficult. Okay, perfect. I found it. There is the cat Krita. It's not really a whole lot of an animation, but it is, it exists, and it did export as a video with exactly how I wanted it to export. Okay, So that's a lot. Again, I'm going to just kind of leave this video up for as long as you need to review it. Feel free to use, ask an adult if it's really hard to understand, and which is totally fine. It's kind of a layered process. I'm also going to be sending out a video that I, rewatched just to remind myself of this process. It's a bit outdated, which was part of my reason for uploading this, so you could see how to do it with some of the newer MMPEG basic websites. Those changed slightly from the video that was made a couple years ago. Okay, but those are the basic things you need to know about animating in Krita and exporting in Krita as well. Hopefully this helped, and I will see you in class soon.